Poor Jimmy. True, it was a terrible night for women, children, and for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who cut his lawn.
It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go. For healthcare.
You know what? If I ever cry on TV, it'll be because Maroon 5 put out a new song. But that's it. You big...
When Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld band together like the Avengers of Sarcasm, you know something is wrong. This time, however, their goal isn't Jimmy Kimmel's ego Thanos. What occurs when a primetime shadow meets a late-night smug? Jimmy was left clutching his punchlines like a security blanket after a verbal assault. Rethink your belief that Kimmel was untouchable, because this roast is nuclear, not simply hot. Stay tuned for the horribly humorous and magnificently public meltdown.
The day when I was on the prime time of Fox and you were on the prime time of CNN, a couple of hours after our shows ended, late night comics would come on, and they occasionally would make us laugh, Pierce. I mean, occasionally they understood that they were in the game of making everyone laugh. As you know, they've abandoned that game now, and they're just political operatives out there. Colbert, Kimmel, Seth Meyer, who I struggle to even mention that guy's name. He's such an absolute, I can't stand him. But anyway, it's just my thought bubble out.
What happens when your TV unintentionally shifts from humor to a middle school principal delivers a TED Talk about morals, but he seems less gregarious and more self-righteous? In some ways, Jimmy would have $1 billion business if smugness could be bottled, with his image on the label, sipping a soy latte and scowling at everybody who has ever supported Bernie Sanders.
All right. So a Republican has won an election, and you know what that means. Jimmy Carter has to stay alive for 4 more years. It's also time for liberals to tell themselves that they're still right about everything and their hysteria and delusions of persecution are perfectly normal. Yet right now, they're melting like that stick of butter Joy Behar keeps between her thighs to prevent chafing. Case in point, last night, all the other late-night hosts threw a hissy fit. It's too bad Tim Waltz is still grieving, or he could send them all a sack of industrial-strength tampons.
He's the guy who built a brand on bikini contests and beer pong, now posturing like the last line of defense against democracy's demise. But this isn't growth. It's rebranding, like a washed-up boy band member trading pop hits for acoustic covers and kale smoothies. Night after night, he stumbles out of comedy's crypt to deliver monologues with the sharpness of a spoon and the force of a damp napkin. Jokes? Long gone. Now it's moral gymnastics masked as satire, performed for a studio crowd primed to clap for the right opinions. Because that's the game now. Clapter over laughter, righteousness over wit. Jimmy Kimmel, once a jester of frat house chaos, now the patron saint of smug late-night sermons. He didn't evolve. He just swapped the keg for a cause and the punchlines for preachy Tumblr posts on national TV.
We took a look at some of their reactions to the news of Trump's win. Look at this.
Hey there. How are you doing? If you watch the show regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great. Yeah, me neither.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go. For healthcare, for our climate. It was a terrible night for poor people, for our allies in Ukraine.
In addition to calling him out, Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld also kicked open his echo chamber door. Said this while holding up a mirror. This is what happens when your punchlines are put through 3 rounds of HR sensitivity training and hashtags take the place of your jokes. It's no longer satire. With a laugh track, it's sanitized outrage. More Facebook ant with a studio budget and less hilarious
Late night host Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air after taking the summer off. He's missed a lot. Kimmel says if you're not vaccinated, you shouldn't get a hospital ICU bed. But I'm not sure if Jimmy was being sincere because he wasn't crying. Anyway, it's just funny hearing someone say, "I see you," who nobody actually sees. Look, I don't want to suggest that Kimmel's show has become boring and predictable, but last night during the taping, people in the studio audience were changing the channel.
Greg Gutfeld, somehow funnier in 5 unscripted seconds than Jimmy Kimmel is in 5 overproduced hours, absolutely leveled him. And he didn't have to reach high to do it. You don't need a ladder to swat someone who's already face down in the dust of their own faded relevance. Watching Gutfeld dismantle Kimmel is like watching someone pop an inflatable clown with a toothpick. Quick, clean, and oddly satisfying. Kimmel thinks he's clever because he uses irony, but irony falls flat when it feels like the joke ends with the audience being scolded. Every segment sounds like a group project where he skipped all the meetings but insisted on giving the final presentation, loudly, awkwardly, and with charts that make zero sense. And then there's Megyn Kelly, surgical in her takedown. No theatrics, no flinching, just precision. She didn't need to shout or rely on gimmicks. She calmly reminded everyone that Jimmy Kimmel isn't brave, bold, or insightful. He's just another aging host cosplaying as America's moral compass, all while collecting corporate checks and pretending to be anti-establishment from a multi-million-dollar studio with LED flooring. It wasn't a debate, it was a reality check, and one that's been overdue for years.
How much it costs to produce Jimmy Kimmel's show? I guarantee you it's tens and tens of millions. It could be as much as 100 million. I have no idea. You know how much Tucker's video cost? Nothing. You know how much Jimmy Kimmel, how many people he gets tuning in on an average night? Just last week, his average was, in the overall, meaning all viewers, 1.5 million. In the key demo, 236,000. Tucker would have been embarrassed to pull that on any night he was on the Fox News channel. That's what they're getting now. Tucker's numbers were 3 times what Jimmy Kimmel gets. And Tucker's little basement video that he did from clearly like his cabin that he broadcasts out of Maine in literally has 21 million views. Okay? 21 million views. Whereas, as I point out, on ABC, a massive network that comes into your home for free that you have to make no effort to find, at best, Jimmy Kimmel can get 1.5 million. He needs to have a little self-perspective before going out there and hurling these insults because he looks a little...
This is the same guy who once thought mean tweets was the height of innovation, who treated tearful monologues about policy as his personal civic duty, who confused platitudes for punchlines, and now spends each night perched in a posture of performative empathy, like he's waiting for America to applaud him for feeling things on our behalf. Let's talk about this so-called transformation, what his team likes to brand as growth. Once upon a time, Jimmy Kimmel wore leather jackets, cracked beer jokes, and pulled pranks. Now he wears a cloak of moral superiority in lectures. Anyone who doesn't align with his carefully curated brand of coastal sanctimony, he's not edgy, he's not rebellious. He's a substitute teacher who caught a kid doodling Trump and now won't stop assigning teachable moments. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld delivers the kind of satire late night forgot, sharp, unapologetic, and mercifully free of sermonizing. No kid gloves, no faux gravitas, just raw, biting comedy that actually remembers the point is to be funny, not preachy. While Kimmel delivers sermons to an echo chamber echoing only his own self-importance, Gutfeld cracks wise and, unforgivably for Jimmy, actually gets laughs. And speaking of laughs, when's the last time Jimmy earned one? His audience claps. Like they've been prompted by a cue card that reads, "Pretend it's funny." These aren't comedy fans, they're therapy seekers. And even the therapy's subpar, because nothing says healing like getting lectured by a guy who once wore a gorilla suit to interview bikini models.
Poor Jimmy. True, it was a terrible night for women, children, and for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who cut his lawn.
It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go. For healthcare, for our climate, for science, for journalism, for justice, for free speech. It was a terrible night for poor people, for the middle class, for seniors who rely on Social Security, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO, for the truth and democracy and decency. And it was a terrible night for everyone who voted against him. And guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet.
The issue isn't even his politics, it's that Jimmy Kimmel isn't dangerous. He's not provocative, not boundary pushing. He's safe, polished, and corporate-approved rebellion. Like a punk band signing with Disney and releasing a soft, rock album about recycling. He thinks he's punching up, but he's really just flinging tired haymakers into the void and refreshing Twitter for applause. Megyn Kelly nailed it with sniper-like precision. Kimmel's entire act is built on a fiction that he's somehow brave for mocking people he dislikes from a multi-million-dollar studio backed by media elites. That's not bravery, that's performance anxiety in activist drag. It's what happens when someone mistakes being loud for being impactful. And the tears, my God, the tears. Jimmy cries more on air than a Netflix docuseries about abandoned puppies. Every policy shift, every public tragedy, every moment of national tension. There he is, blinking dramatically, voice cracking, waiting for the ovation to swell around his finely tuned vulnerability. You could set a clock by it. It's not authenticity, it's stagecraft. The man's tear ducts might as well have their own publicist.
Last night was the 96th Academy Awards show, and while you might have missed it, there was one clear winner. No, not Oppenheimer. It was sanctimonious leftists for their lead role in pretending they are better than you. Several people shared in this achievement. Winner number one, Jimmy Kimmel. For the fourth time, Kimmel hosted the Oscars before an adoring crowd of Hollywood stars who laughed and curried favor with the man who wore blackface so many times he's second only to Justin Trudeau in his fondness for the practice. Yes, some of the very same celebrities who wanted you to believe they were horrified after yours truly said in 2018 that people used to don dark makeup in order to imitate well-known black celebrities and it wasn't a big deal. Absolutely ate up the performance by Hollywood darling Mr.
Greg Gutfeld said it best. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't need a writer's room, he needs an intervention. Someone to gently explain that just because he feels something doesn't mean the rest of us need to watch it unfold in high definition, backed by dramatic music and a teleprompter. His show isn't late-night comedy anymore. It's a public therapy session for his unresolved guilt, and we're all trapped in it like it's part of our cable package. While Jimmy tries to outwoke the internet, his audience quietly vanishes. Turns out, people don't enjoy being lectured by a millionaire with a savior complex and punchlines that hit like they're stuck in a 3-year software update. His ratings dropping faster than his jokes. At this rate, he'll be doing stand-up at Whole Foods, right between the organic hummus samples and the climate petition signups. Even his writers seem exhausted. The jokes float in like balloon taps, soft, slow, and deflated. You can hear the collective sigh in the studio when yet another Republicans are bad bit rolls out like a preheated Hot Pocket. Lukewarm, overdone, and entirely forgettable. No heat, no sting, just the same smug chuckle like he's explaining. Democracy to toddlers. And then there's Megyn Kelly. She didn't show up for the spectacle, she showed up for the reckoning. She said what everyone was thinking. Jimmy Kimmel isn't controversial, he's commodified dissent, he's rebellion. With a ratings clause. The kid who tattles at recess, then gives a unity speech at the school assembly.
Remember when Johnny Carson cried like a baby over Ronald Reagan getting elected? Yeah, neither do I. And you know why he didn't? Because his wife didn't keep his balls in a Tupperware container next to a box of tofu burgers. But the killer phrase was at the end when Kimmel said, "You just don't realize it." Because you see, he's smarter than you, and he needs you to know that. And his ego can't bear that there's someone out there more famous and more influential than him. I got news for you, Kimmel. The last time you mattered, Bruce Jenner still had a penis. Love you, Bruce.
Even the way Jimmy Kimmel delivers jokes has changed. He leans into the camera like he's about to reveal the twist ending to The Sixth Sense, whispering punchlines like classified intel, as if seriousness might mask the absence of actual humor. It doesn't. It just makes viewers feel like they've stumbled into a hostage video with better lighting. When he's not lecturing, he's pandering, desperately trying to prove he's one of us, while broadcasting from a studio that costs more per day than most Americans make in a year. He wants to be relatable, but it's hard to relate to a guy whose biggest hardship is losing an Emmy to Stephen Colbert. Gutfeld understands the game. He doesn't pander, he provokes. And that's the point of real comedy, to challenge, to poke, to agitate. Kimmel, by contrast, bubble wraps every joke in a disclaimer. Don't get mad, I'm one of the good ones. That's not comedy. That's corporate risk management dressed in a blazer. So now, we're left watching Jimmy Kimmel slowly dissolve into late-night wallpaper. Once genuinely funny, now more interested in signaling virtue than delivering laughs. He's not dangerous, not insightful, not even particularly entertaining anymore. He's just there, like a forgotten screensaver, blinking, smiling, and gently reminding us that he used to be cool.
Jimmy's career peaked with busty girls on trampolines. Now the only boob we see is him. He once co-hosted The Man Show. Now he's sobbing like he just watched Steel Magnolias 3 days into his menstrual.
Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld didn't destroy Jimmy Kimmel. They didn't need to. He's been doing that all by himself, one sanctimonious monologue at a time. All they did was hold up a mirror. And the reflection? It wasn't bold or edgy, it was tired, predictable, and about 2 weak punchlines away from complete irrelevance. But hey, maybe there's still hope. Maybe Jimmy will ditch the moral grandstanding, find a fresh angle, and remember how to be actually funny. Or, more likely, he'll cry about it. Because if history tells us anything, a teary close-up might just be the season finale of The Jimmy Kimmel Show, streaming now on every network that mistakes earnestness for entertainment. At this point, Kimmel isn't just phoning it in. He's texting it in from a Malibu wine bar, sipping a Chardonnay labeled Tears of the Common Man. His version of connecting with everyday Americans, posting selfies with celebrities who wouldn't, recognize a grocery store if it hit them with a shopping cart. Meanwhile, his punchlines are so stale they should come vacuum sealed. And yet, he struts across the stage like he just reinvented comedy and cured apathy. Spoiler alert, he did neither. He just slapped a sad face on sarcasm and started calling it political commentary.
Blackface costumes included his oft-repeated bit as basketball star Karl Malone.
Now, Karl Malone never seen no flying saucer himself, but if he do, that's gonna be a spooky time.
And let's not forget Oprah in a fat suit.
15 minutes a day is all you need to get your heart rate up to where...
Please, Miss Oprah, you're crushing my... Sorry, Miss Oprah.
Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld didn't uncover some shocking scandal. They just said what everyone else was thinking. Jimmy Kimmel has become the TV equivalent of kale. Supposedly good for you, but absolutely joyless to consume. And like kale, he's hyped by people who pretend to enjoy him because admitting otherwise might make them seem out of touch. Here's the real kicker. Most of the laughs he still gets aren't laughs at all. They're nods of agreement dressed up as chuckles. That's not comedy. That's confirmation bias set to a drum roll. The last time Kimmel made anyone genuinely laugh without having to apologize 10 minutes later was probably back in the Bush era. Meanwhile, Gutfeld racks up ratings with actual jokes, and Kelly cuts through the noise with brutal clarity. Jimmy? He's still over there hosting what amounts to a nightly TED Talk, light on punchlines, heavy on self-congratulation. And if this is where late night is headed, we might as well tuck it in, give it a forehead kiss, and let it drift off into a soft, smug coma. Sleep tight, Jimmy. Try not to cry too loud. Some of us are still laughing, just not at your show.
This past 2 weeks, they had the Kennedy Center honors the other night where Joe Biden couldn't say Dionne Warwick. He kept calling her Diane, and he didn't know who Barry Gibb was. He kept calling him Billy. You know who else was honored? At the Kennedy Center. You know who else? Billy Crystal. Just FYI, do you know who once opened up the Academy Awards in full blackface?
Oh,
Billy Crystal. Billy Crystal. And do you know who's going to be hosting the Academy Awards this year? Jimmy Kimmel. Do you know who's worn blackface repeatedly and spoken inner city sort of urban accent saying she needs to darn those socks? Jimmy Kimmel as Oprah, as a fat-suited, black-faced, darning socks Oprah. Now, if you are of the left, that's fine.
Because comedy is ultimately about the truth, not about safe emotions or carefully staged fury. Challenge and the courage to make others laugh while making them uncomfortable, Jimmy Kimmel forgot that he was locked in the same stale role as the self-appointed woke guardian wearing a velvet glove of humorless sympathy, somewhere between the celebrity interviews and the moral sermons. In the meantime, genuine voices that are honest, incisive, and unrepentant are establishing a space where laughter truly has meaning. So let's get over the cliched jokes and meaningless sobs. The stage surpasses Jimmy's pitiful gathering.